is a person that is balanced. And so, many times our education system and many times ourselves, we become, in Arabic they say somebody is حافظ بس مش فاهم. Somebody memorizes, but he doesn't understand. So, meaning many times we lack the wisdom because we memorize the ahkam, or we memorize what you shouldn't be too nice, or you shouldn't be too harsh. These bold statements where they draw a line and they lack wisdom. They lack real understanding. And so subhanAllah, many times we see this prevalent in our education system where, speaking for myself, you go through school and sometimes if you don't see the exact same problem that you saw in the homework, you will struggle with it on the exam because you don't understand the principle. You're understanding what? You're understanding only how to operate and how to keep moving. And sometimes we use our religion and our understanding of even, how to operate in the world in the same sense, where because of one experience, we're ready to throw away. And so, for some people who might have a very soft heart or used to have in their upbringing a very kind heart, and they were, subhanAllah, abused in that way, where people took advantage of their softness and their kindness, and they basically developed a kind of, they built their character that it's not right to be a nice guy or to be the guy that everybody walks over. And so they developed this idea. And subhanAllah, it's to the point where if they watch somebody else, if it's in a scene, or they watch somebody from far, being walked all over, they will have they will feel pain because of that. And if they find somebody who is, subhanAllah, steps up and basically gets his right, they will feel happy for him and they will embrace that feeling. It's because, subhanAllah, many times we play with the extremes, where we try to go from one extreme of being, subhanAllah, very, very, very soft or kind to the opposite. And we lack that wisdom. For subhanAllah, this wisdom is very, very, very important. And if we lack it, we won't be able to, subhanAllah, to understand how Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to operate. And so this is, in a way, how we should, subhanAllah, program ourselves when it comes to harm, to avoiding harm and approaching good. And so with that, every action that we do has that innate. If my heart is good, I want to approach, subhanAllah, I want to approach good things. So for example, if I'm coming up with the action of doing this khutbah, there comes with it two types of engines that come up with my action, or your action to come to the masjid, or your action to pray tarawih, or your action to fast today. There's two engines to your action. It's the knowledge and the intention. And these two are really important. And the knowledge, we know, subhanAllah, that we need to have the right set of knowledge, which is from Allah Azza wa Jalla, from the revelation. Even if our experiences and our feelings are in line with it, but the revelation is the anchor. So that's the term of knowledge. When it comes to intentions, our intentions need to be to Allah Azza wa Jalla alone. And when I say to Allah Azza wa Jalla alone, does not mean we can't care for our community, for our parents. Let's say somebody's helping their mom. You can care for your mom, but who is at the peak of that pyramid? It's Allah Azza wa Jalla. And if you ever struggle to, subhanAllah, to really understand what your intention for an action is, put the two entities that you're dealing with against each other. So if you're in a way thinking am I helping my mom because she's my mom and I love her and I wanna make her happy, or am I doing it to please Allah Azza wa Jal and do birr of al-walidain? So if you ever have that conflict, put the two entities against each other. If your mom asks you to do something that is haram, what would you do? Subhanallah. And that's how if you would obey, then of course the peak of your pyramid is pleasing your mother compared to pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal. And so this concept sometimes, subhanAllah, becomes very, very, we tend to mix this, especially with our youth, because it's a very easy term to say, we're friends for the sake of Allah. But we become very hesitant to check each other and to correct each other when, subhanAllah, that person will get upset. And so who's at the peak of that pyramid in that case? Is it Allah Azza wa Jal and the pleasure of Him and you not liking somebody doing something wrong? Or is it the fear of ruining that relationship between you and your friend? For subhanAllah, that's just the second layer when it comes to intention. Is that our intentions need to come to Allah Azza wa Jal alone. And so when we read Surah Al-Fatiha, every single day, many, many times in every single salah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Make us among the path of the people that you, Allah, put your favor upon. And then we ask Allah to make us not among the two other groups. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. And so who are these three groups? How do we become among the people who are on the right path, on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, who are, the ones that Allah Azza put His favor upon? How do we become those people? By aligning our knowledge and our intention. If our knowledge is for Allah, is through the book of Allah and through revelation, and our intention is for Allah Azza wa Jal, that action is an action of, the people of Fadl, the people that Allah Azza wa Jal put His favor upon. That's a guided action. We're going to consider it. However, now let's look at the other one. If any of these two terms, the knowledge and the intention, get misaligned, we will go astray. So let's look at each one. If our intentions is in the right place, but our knowledge is lacking, what will happen to us? We will become among the dhalleen. And that's how Allah Azza wa Jal describes them. And those people, to give an example, are the Christians many times. In the Quran, when a lot of the scholars describe them as the Christians. Why? Because they have the intention. They have the sincerity that these things are for God and these things are for, a greater good. And they have a lot of love and emotion and spirituality. Yet, when you look at their knowledge, there's no substance, there's no logic, there's no arguments. They're very weak. And so you find them, subhanAllah, in their churches, they're getting closer to God through dancing and through singing and through all these different practices that Allah Azza wa Jal never revealed, Allah Azza wa Jal never mandated. They're not the right way to get closer to Allah. And so this is a concept of being misguided. And so I know this might seem a little bit far, like what does this have to do with me? But it does, because every single one of our actions, we can consider it in this path. And so a relevant example is, let's say a young man gets married and he has the best intention. He wants to get married to assemble a family, to take care of his wife, to do all these great, subhanAllah, things with the right intentions for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet, he doesn't have the right knowledge to what makes a family thrive, to how am I supposed to be as a husband, to what does a relationship look like. He did not prepare, he did not take the necessary steps to learn, to know the knowledge. That is an action of dalalah. That is an action of misguidance. That person, even though he had the right intention, he went astray. And so, he went astray in that one action. And so, we can assess this to all of our actions, to our fasting today, to our salah, to all of these actions. Now let's look at the next group. When our intentions are in the wrong place, yet we have the knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the example of the Jews. They say in Surah Al-Baqarah and in Surah Al-Nisa and many other surahs where Allah Azza wa Jal, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابِ, talking about the Jews. يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. Wallahi, this is very, very intriguing when you hear it. Like just think about this verse. الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. The people of the book, they know that he is the prophet like they know their own kids. SubhanAllah, when somebody sees their kid or their sibling or somebody that they recognize as close, you know them from far, from the way they walk. You know them from any simple thing that they do, that you'll know that's my kid. That's somebody I know. They knew he was the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam like they knew their own kids. وَإِنَّ فَرِيقًا مِّنْهُمْ لَيَكْتُمُونَ الْحَقِّ. And a group of them conceal the truth. وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. Even though they knew. Why? How can somebody have that knowledge that they recognize? Imagine, subhanAllah, the Prophet, the Muslims in Mecca, when they were going to Medina, they thought, subhanAllah, like, we're going to go to Medina and these are people of the book. They have the books before us. Why wouldn't they believe? Like, they have the knowledge. Because they were dealing with who? The mushriks of Mecca, who had no knowledge or intention. But at least they're like, these people have knowledge. They have books. And yet, subhanAllah, they have that animosity. Why? Because it didn't come from within them. Because the haqq was against their hawa. The truth was against their wants. وَلَئِنِ اتَّبَعَ الْحَقُّ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ لَفَسَدَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ. And if the truth ever went along with their hawa, the world would basically become so corrupt. For subhanAllah, this is how they did. And Abu Jahl was the same way. when he stood, subhanallah, and he says, Wallahi inni la'a'lamu anna Muhammadan la-sadiq. I know by Allah that Muhammad is saying the truth. But how could, and then he says, how could we, basically his tribe, compete with Bani Hashim when they say they have somebody that, subhanAllah, is getting wahi from the sky? How could we compete with him? That was their thought. He's not thinking about the truth. He's thinking about myself. He's thinking about, oh my, how could I compete with that? And how many times, we might not do it to that extent, but how many times will we put ourselves before the truth? How many times will we put our own feelings, our own wants, our own family pride, or whatever it is, above what Allah Azza wa Jal wants, even though we know the truth? And it's very, very painful. And subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran says, when He's describing the disbeliever, تَشَابَهَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, that their hearts are similar. Look, Abu Jahl is from one side, completely different identity from the Jews of Medina. Completely different identity, but their hearts are similar. And our hearts can be similar if we don't work on it, and if we don't clean it, and if we don't use the tools that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us to clean it. Because if we don't have, subhanAllah, the right sets of intention, we'll go astray. And this is, subhanAllah, so important, because, subhanAllah, it can happen to us. These actions, like somebody who's leading salah, or somebody who is helping, donating, and he has riyā. That's exactly that. He has the right actions, he has the right knowledge, he knows how to do everything correctly, but the wrong intention. He's doing it for people. He's doing it to be seen or said that this person is pious, this person is donating. And we know the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that the three people that will go to Jahannam first, a scholar that had knowledge, just so people say that he knows. And a martyr, a shaheed, somebody who sacrificed his life for Allah with the wrong intention. But he did it so that it can be said that he's a furious fighter. And somebody who donates for the sake of Allah, but in reality, it's so people can see and people can say he donated. And subhanAllah, that's how we can implement this, because I know it sounds far, like the Yahud of Bani Israel or the Abu Jahl. This sounds like it's not to us, but the Quran is not a book for us, subhanAllah, to just talk about them, to talk about the people, the story of Yusuf, or talk about people of Hud, or to talk about, the Quraysh. No, it's just us. Fihi dhikrukum, Allah says that this book has your remembrance. It is for us, subhanAllah, to use, to filter these things. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم فيا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وكفى ثم الصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم خاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. So when we talk about now the three categories that we want to be in, الذين أنعم الله عليهم, those people, and then there's the مغضوب عليهم, and then there's the ones that get Allah Azza wa Jall's wrath. That's with the wrong intention, with the right knowledge. And then the ones that are on dalala are with the right intention, with the wrong set of knowledge. And the ones that have the rida of Allah have both, the correct intention and correct knowledge. And so this is not something that I assess myself as a whole. You could take this and assess every single one of your actions, because every action has an intention. Every single action we do, there's an intention behind it. So you can assess that. And, the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Iman bid'un wa sab'una shu'bah, that faith is 70 and so branches. A'laha la ilaha illallah. A'laha qawlu la ilaha illallah. The highest of it is saying la ilaha illallah. And the lowest of it is imatatul adha an tariq. And removing harm from the street is the lowest level of iman. And so there's 70 branches. And each one of these branches, you can diagnose yourself. You can diagnose, do I have the right sets of knowledge? Do I have the right intention? And you could have one that you have, a strand of misguidance because you don't seek the knowledge. You could have a strand where your intention is not aligned correctly. You could have a strand where, subhanAllah, you are upon the right path. And so the ones that more of their strands are on the right path, that's somebody that, subhanAllah, he's on the straight path. And of course, it's going to vary and it's going to change, and it's not a perfect, subhanAllah, thing that you can always implement. But this is where we can start. We can use this hadith, and I urge every single one of you to go in and to look through these 70, branches of Iman and try to see and assess where do you fall in these. This is the month that we do this stuff. This is the month where we fix and clean our hearts. Because wallahi, if we don't, it's tough. Like imagine you don't even know the things that harm you and the things that benefit you. And that's how the rest of the world is. That's how the non-Muslims are. They don't know. They get in relationships. They have same-sex relationships. They have families that are broken. And I really don't mean to judge, and I really don't mean to point fingers. But when you don't have a manual, a guide, somebody who created you that's telling you how to live, it's very tough. And especially when you have a group, when you have people that are purposely misguiding, purposely mixing the falsehood and the truth. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He's describing, some of the fitan of Bani Israel. يَلْبِسُونَ الْحَقِّ يَا بَنِي لِمَ تَلْبِسُونَ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Just think of the makr that they have. They take the truth and they mix it with falsehood. Why? So that when somebody sees, wow, this makes sense, but it's mixed with a lot of stuff that doesn't, with a lot of evil. And when you look at a lot of these movements, and I really don't want to get into any politics, but you look at them, subhanAllah, there is a case to be made. They will give you, something that happened. Even with the Zionists, they will use what's the good thing, or what's their argument. The Jews got, subhanAllah, with the Nazis. They will use the Holocaust. They will use these things. They will put one nice thing or one thing that's true and then 50 lies. Women's rights, same thing. A lot of women, subhanAllah, go through so many, they get abused. And so what do? They use that and they paint over so much more things that destruct the family and the fabric of society. And so this is, subhanAllah, the same tools. And now imagine we don't have that anchor, that revelation that we must need. And so this, subhanAllah, is the crux of the khutbah. But there's just one last part, which has to do, subhanAllah, with, so this is when our fitrah is natural, that we know that, subhanAllah, I want the good and I want to avoid harm. How about when we do the opposite? Somebody that knows that something is harmful for me and still does it. Where does that come from? That comes from pleasure. A lot of times, you might know fast food is bad for you, or you might know a certain action is bad for you, yet you cannot stop, or you keep indulging. This is, subhanAllah, another sunnah that Allah Azza wa Jal put in this dunya. That حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ. This is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says that Jannah was surrounded by hated things, and Jahannam was surrounded by beloved things. And so Allah Azza wa Jal made the sunnah of things on this earth the same, where the things that are basically harmful for us, on the outside they're very pretty. On the outside they taste good. On the outside they have a lot of pleasure. But the things that, subhanAllah, take and have a lot of meaning and have a lot of real pleasure, like the Jannah. Jannah takes a lot of effort to get to. On the outside they're very difficult, like salah, ibadah. Ibadah is difficult. Sometimes you're standing on salah and your feet hurt. You're tired, you're bored, and you push and you push. And then, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jalla just willed that after a few rak'ahs, you might start feeling, subhanAllah, the pleasure of ibadah. And so this is a concept that a human, imagine us like a cup. You only have a certain amount of actions or a certain amount of things you can fill. And imagine you fill them with so many cheap pleasures. Even if they're halal, but if they're cheap pleasures, you have no more room for the real pleasures. On the outside, things look hard, but on the inside, there's so much pleasure behind ibadah. And that's why when we're able to give up the cheap pleasures, so that even, eating is halal, but if you can lower your consumption of food, where it's not, you're just getting your need, you're getting, you're fulfilling the hadith where you're getting a third for your food, a third for your water, and a third for your breath, for breathing. When you do this, you have gave up on cheap pleasures. And so there's room for the real pleasures. And subhanAllah, this becomes very, very, very apparent when the Prophet ﷺ tells us the hadith about lowering the gaze, about not looking for pleasure. Because subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ says that if a person is looking for a pleasure in ibadah, let him lower his gaze. If you lower your gaze, if you basically abstain from a cheap pleasure, Allah Azza wa Jalla will open doors for you to enjoy your ibadah, for you to get pleasure of something that's more meaningful. Because everything in life, even let's say things that have nothing to do with religion in a way, taking care of your body, it's not a magic trick. You're not gonna just do 2 days, 3 days and you're gonna get in shape. No, it's a lot of pain. It's a lot of going to the gym and getting ready and getting ready and getting ready. And imagine after all that, subhanAllah, you get a good physique. Why? Because you worked hard for it, because you took the hard part first. But imagine you went straight to the quick pleasure, to the phones, to the food, to all these things. You're not gonna get the body you want. You're not gonna feel strong. You're not gonna be healthy. Same thing with even relationships. SubhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal, this is how He built it. People who go through marriage. Marriage is very difficult in the beginning. You have to go through family. You gotta save money. I'm sure a lot of people know the struggle. It's a lot. But what? After you go through it, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal blesses you and you're living a good life, and then kids and family, and things go well. The path of zina, for example, may Allah protect all of us. In the beginning, pleasure and no commitment, and things are easy and things just go. And yet after, more harm than benefit. Like we said, subhanAllah. And so this is just the crux of it, of this part, is that we are living in a time where these instant gratifications from our phones, from our food, from our consumptions, have polluted our hearts. That even when we recognize what's right and wrong, we can't. Because we have too much, we're too stimulated by it. And so we need to cut down and allow room for our connection with Allah, the connection with the divine, connection with our community, with our families, with our parents. And we can use these 70 branches that we discussed to really look into them. Because if we aren't able to do that, subhanAllah, how can we be beacons to the rest of our society, to our friends, to our community, to our co-workers, to all of our people? And I will end with this, subhanAllah. There is a saying by a wise man that he says, subhanAllah, he was on his deathbed. I think they say he was around his 60s or whatever, maybe older. He was on his deathbed. And he said, I wanted to change the world. And then I realized that was such a big task. I wasn't able to. So I decided I'm going to try to change my country. And then I realized that is also very difficult. So I decided I'm going to try to change my community. And then I realized I can't even do that. So I decided I'm going to try to change my family. So then I realized I can't even do that. So then I started working on myself. He says, now I'm 60. But only and only if I was able to go the other way. Only if I was able to start with myself. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Only if I was able to start with myself. Allah Azza wa Jal will not change the affairs of a people till they change with what is within themselves. Only, he says, only if I was able to start with myself. Maybe then I can go to my family. And maybe then I can go to my community. And maybe then I can get to the whole world. And so subhanAllah, this is an urgent call. This is the month of change. The Quran came down in the month of Ramadan. And the history is in the same sense. Since the Quran came down, empires fell. A whole civilization got created. Allah Azza wa Jalla allowed. For this book is capable of changing surroundings. It's able to change the hearts first. And it must change the hearts first. We need to let the Quran and let, subhanAllah, this revelation, the anchor that we discussed, be the center. And this is the month for it, where we kick away the instant gratifications. We kick away all the cheap pleasures, and we aspire to the real pleasures of Allah Azza wa Jal, of connecting with Him and connecting with the divine and connecting with the Messenger of Allah. And if we do that, we will be able to change ourselves. And this Ramadan, let it be one where we say, subhanAllah, this Ramadan was the Ramadan I changed. This Ramadan is the Ramadan I cut these habits. And I promise you it won't be perfect. And you will fight and you will win and lose. But this is the Ramadan that the change starts. And this is some very, very practical steps. I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to allow us to use what's left of this Ramadan and allow us to reach Laylatul Qadr and allow us to be among the people who are free from Jahannam and the ones that entered Jannah from its wide doors and among the ones that be with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And Ya Allah, please accept our fasts and please accept our ibadat and our salah, and forgive all of our shortcomings, and forgive all of our laziness and our tiredness, and accept every ibadah we do, and make it towards your sake, and teach us the right knowledge. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك يا ربنا سميع قريب مجيب للدعوات. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا كلها. اللهم اعف عنا واغفر لنا. اللهم بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم كن مع إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم كن لهم معينا ونصيرا. اللهم وحد صفوفهم وثبت أقدامهم وانصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم. اللهم كن معهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم تقبل منا واغفر لنا وارحمنا نحن ووالدينا والمؤمنين جميعا يا أرحم الراحمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.